Hannah here with Hannah Bakes. I decided that I want to try to do some how to bake cupcake videos at high elevation. Now, I'm originally from Idaho and loved baking, grew up baking with my grandma, baked with her all the time. And then my husband dragged me to Colorado and I found out I couldn't bake. Nothing that I tried to bake worked. Couldn't bake cookies, couldn't bake cupcakes, couldn't make anything I wanted to make, even for special occasions. And I found out that there's a lot of little changes you need to make in order to successfully bake at high altitudes, such as Colorado. So I'm at about 6,000 feet where I'm at now, and that's what my recipes are all tested for. Today I'm going to be doing an orange cupcake, light springy cupcake for this beautiful summer day that we're having. We are going to start with our basic ingredients, and then we'll move up into the orange flavoring as we get into the cupcake. I'm going to start with my dry ingredients. Now, for me to do my dry ingredients, I like to get a big bowl that I have, and I use a sieve in order to sift my dry ingredients. You want to make sure you sift your dry ingredients so you don't have clumps in them. If you have clumpy ingredients in your cupcake, you're not getting all the ingredients mixed into it, and somebody might bite into it and get that wonderful taste of flour in the middle of it. So I'm starting with my 2.5 cups of flour. I'm going to put that in my sieve and just tap it out into the bowl so that it's nice and fluffy and airy and it gets out all of those hard pieces. And then I'm going to move into my 1 3/4 cups of sugar. Sugar is one of those ingredients at high altitude that you have to adjust. They need to be decreased from what you would normally use in order for things to rise correctly in high altitude. So I have my flour and my sugar in a bowl. The last thing I'm going to use the sieve for is I have a small cup of 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder and 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda. I use both of them in all of my recipes. Some recipes prefer baking soda over baking powder if you're using something really citrusy versus something really sweet. I like to use both because I don't have to worry about adjusting them based on my flavor palette. I can do any flavor cupcake I want as long as I'm using both of them. Baking powder is something that has to be adjusted for altitude, and I decrease it. So I'm going to put that in there to make sure I get all the chunks out. And then I have all of my dry ingredients in one bowl and they're sifted. Now that I have my dry ingredients ready, I'm going to start the batter in my mixer. I'm going to start with your liquid ingredients. I start with my eggs, 2 eggs. Some recipes will tell you room temperature. I have found that I don't see much of a difference in terms of my cupcakes if they're room temperature or not, so I tend to pull them right out of the fridge when I use them. I crack these in first because if I accidentally get an e-shell in there, I can make sure I get it out. Now that my 2 eggs are in there, I'm going to add 2/3 cup of oil. I'm just using vegetable oil. A lot of recipes that you look at will call for butter instead of oil. It really depends on your purpose behind it. I prefer to use oil in mine because if I want to refrigerate them, especially on hot summer days, I can throw them in the refrigerator and they're not going to get rock hard. If I use butter in my cupcakes, they're going to get rock hard and you have to set them back out, let them soften back up before anybody can eat them. This way with oil, my husband can go straight to the fridge, grab a fresh orange cupcake out and just eat it slightly cold on a hot summer day. Next thing that I'm going to add is 1.25 cups of milk. Liquid is your friend at high elevation. So my milk is increased from what normally would be 1 cup to 1.25 cups. Now I'm going to turn my mixer on slow until I can see that all my egg yolks are broken and mixed in. When the mixture in the bowl starts to kind of get a yellow tint to it, and I know all my yolks are broken, I'm going to start adding my dry ingredients. I don't want to add them early, because if you add your dry ingredients before your yolks are broken, it's going to make a mess later on. So I'm going to add about 1/3 of my dry ingredients to the bowl first. If you add too much, it's not going to mix in very well. I'm going to start on slow so it doesn't poof up out of the bowl at me, until I see that it's mixed in well enough, pretty much to the point that there's no powder left. All the powder is wet. Then I'll do another 1/3 and mix mix again until I can see all the powder is wet. You don't want to overmix your batter. If you overmix your batter, you're going to make your cupcakes deflate in the oven instead of be nice and puffy. And last one. Now that I put all my dry ingredients in here, I'm going to make sure that this runs until it's nice and smooth batter. I'm going to kind of watch it as it goes. When the powder's sticking up on the sides, you want to make sure you scrape it down, which I'm about at that point. So I'm going to scrape everything down on the edges of my bowl, make sure all of that powder is getting incorporated into the batter. I'm going to turn it on again. You're looking for a nice smooth batter. You can see that the batter is nice and smooth. I don't have any clumps in it. It's nice and thick, but I'm going to change that here in a second. Now right now I just have plain cupcake batter in my bowl. I want to turn this into orange cupcakes. Two things that I'm going to use for that is I'm going to use an orange zest and I'm going to use some orange extract. If you don't have orange extract, you could use vanilla extract instead and change out some of your liquid ingredients for liquid orange juice instead. I prefer the extract, gives it a little bit of a brighter flavor than just the orange juice. So I like to zest straight into my bowl, so I'm not messing with trying to get it transferred from one thing to another. I'm going to zest half the orange into the batter, and then the other half is going to get zested into the frosting later on. Now that I have about half my orange zested, I want to make sure I get all of the zest off of here. A lot of your zest likes to hide at the back of your zester, so I'm going to just lightly make sure that that is all dropping down into the bowl. Now, you want to incorporate and mix in all of that wonderful zest. I'm just going to turn it on low until it's pretty evenly mixed in. Smell fresh orange. Okay. And then I'm going to add a little bit of orange extract to it. I am going to add half a teaspoon of orange extract. You don't want to add too much. If you add too much extract to your cupcakes, you're going to make them start to taste fake. A little bit of extract gives it a little bit of that flavor without making it taste fake. I'm going to mix that in. Now I have a nice, even batter. The last thing I'm going to do is what I do on all my cupcakes, which is my secret to making all my high elevation cupcakes work, is I'm going to add a cup of some nice hot water from my sink. I just like to turn the hot water on until it's as hot as it can get, to the point that I probably can't touch it, and I need to get a cup of hot water. Now, if your oven is not preheated to 350 degrees, do not put this in your batter yet. You don't want this to sit in the batter. You want it to go in the batter hot, go in the pan hot, go in the oven hot. So if you haven't turned your oven on to 350 degrees, preheat that first before you do this. Now, I'm going to turn my batter on low, and like I said earlier, you want to make sure you don't overmix your batter. One of the reasons I do all my mixes really short bursts all the way up to this point is because I know I'm going to have my mixer on for a while as I try to incorporate the water. If I pour all the water in, turn the mixer up high, it's going to go everywhere and it's not going to incorporate into the batter. So I'm going to start on low speed and just slowly drizzle water in. And this is the longest that you're going to end up mixing your batter. So you want to keep all of your other mixes super short so you don't overmix it by the time it goes in the oven. You're just going to slowly pour a cup of hot water into the batter and make sure it incorporates all the way. Now to make sure it's all incorporated in there. It's very liquidy right now, so I'm going to make sure I scrape down all of the sides and get all of that extra thick batter off the edges of the bowl so that they can be mixed with the water that I just put in. And then I'm going to run one more mix through there. Because all of the liquid is now in there and incorporated, I can speed it up a little bit more. Just for about 5-10 seconds. And your batter is now ready to be poured into your pans. When you are filling your pans for your cupcakes, you want to fill them to about 1/2 to 2/3 full. You don't want to fill them any more than that, where they puff up too much, kind of break over the top, take too long to cook. You want to try to have them all be about the same. If you have one filled more than the others, you're going to have some cook faster than the others and overcook some of them by the time they're all done. Before I put these in the oven, I like to go over and make sure they're all about the same. If there's any that are too low, I'll add a little bit more batter too, so that they cook all the same. Now that these are ready, I'm going to tap them on the counter just twice so that I can get any of the air bubbles that were created from pouring it in, get them pulled up to the top so that you don't have empty spots in your cupcake. Now these are ready to go in the oven. I'm going to set a timer for 15 minutes. And we are going to get ready to do our frosting next. While those are baking, we're going to get our buttercream frosting put together. Now I'm going to do an orange buttercream frosting for this. Use 2 sticks of butter. You can do unsalted butter or salted butter, kind of up to your preference if you like things being more salty than sweet. And you're going to put 2 sticks of butter into your bowl so we can cream it together. Now the biggest thing with creaming butter is you want it to change color a little bit when you cream it. A lot of people have a tendency to do this and call it good because it's creamy and it's not sticks anymore. But when you cream your butter, you actually want to whip it for about 1 to 3 minutes until it about doubles in size. During this time, you're going to have to scrape your bowl down about 2 or 3 times to make sure you get all of the butter incorporated into it. It's going to turn to a slightly lighter color while you do this and double in size. If you don't fully cream your butter, you're not going to end up with enough frosting to frost your 24 lovely cupcakes. Now, I don't know if I can tell. Might not be, not sure if you can tell, but this is the butter as it comes out of the package. This is the creamed butter on the side. It's slightly lighter than the butter that comes out of the package. So that's what you're looking for, is you're looking for it to lighten up a little bit and about double in size. Now that my butter is creamed, I'm going to add 3 cups of powdered sugar. I don't want to add this all at once. It'll poof up in my face, and inhaling that is not fun. I'm going to do about 1 cup at a time until it's all mixed in. With your powdered sugar, you want to make sure you start on the lowest speed possible. And as you see the powdered sugar get mixed into the butter, you can start to speed it up a little bit. You're looking for the powdered sugar to be mixed into the butter and start to look like frosting before you add more powdered sugar in. Your frosting's going to be getting thicker as you do this. I'm going to add what's left of my powdered sugar in, take my paddle off so it's easier. So I'm just looking for all of that powdered sugar to be mixed in and for it to start to look creamy and look more like frosting. And then I will add my flavor ingredients into it. Now it's starting to get really thick and the paddle is just not making it through it. So you can see it's sticking to the paddle like crazy. It's not as creamy as it was before. And this is where your liquids will come in. I typically always add about 2 tablespoons of liquid, depending on what kind of frosting you're making. We're going to make orange frosting today for our orange cupcakes, so I'm adding 2 tablespoons of orange juice. And you want to turn that on slow because the frosting's really thick right now. If I turn it on high, it's going to splash that orange juice right out of the bottom of the bowl. As you see the liquid get incorporated, you can start to turn up your speed more until it starts to come off of that paddle, and that tells you that it's getting nice and creamy for your frosting. So you can see the frosting's coming off the paddle now, so it's not thick anymore, it's nice and smooth. The last thing I'm going to add, just for a little bit of freshness to it, is I'm going to add some fresh orange zest. This is where the other half of that orange comes in from our cupcakes. We're going to zest the other half of the orange and put it straight into our frosting. Oh, that's good. And like before, I'm going to zest it straight into the bowl just so I can make sure I get all of it. The back side of my zester, make sure I get all of that zest off of the zester and into the frosting. And I'm going to give that one last mix until all of that zest is mixed in. And we are about ready to frost. Now, our frosting is already taking on a little bit of an orange tint. If you want to have some fun with it, you could add some food coloring to make it more of a vibrant, bright orange, which I think I might do. My timer just went off, so we're going to make sure we pull our cupcakes out and test them to make sure they're all the way down. To use a cake tester. You can use a toothpick instead. I just like my cake tester because I always know I have it. You want to stick it into your largest cupcake. I'm going to pick this one. You want to stick it into your largest cupcake and straight in the middle and pull it straight out. If it comes out clean, they're all the way done. If you like your cupcakes a little bit more brown, you can put them in for about another minute or 2. I like them this way because I don't want to overcook them. If you overcook them, they're going to stick to the paper. I'm going to let these cool while we color our frosting. I have orange frosting color, well, orange coloring. So I'm going to add just about 2 drops in there to start. I'm going to mix that into my frosting. You can see in my bowl right now, it's nice and orange in the center, but the edges you still see the lighter orange from the beginning. So you want to make sure that when you're adding color, that you scrape your sides all the way down so all of the frosting gets color. Unless you want a tie-dye looking frosting, in which case you can just leave it. Just want to make sure you mix that in all the way. Now we have some nice bright orange frosting for our orange Dreamsicle cupcake. I've pulled my cupcakes out of the oven. I'm going to let them stay in the tray for about 5 to 10 minutes so they can start to cool off. Once the 5 and 10 minutes are over, I'm going to pull them out of the tray and put them on a cooling rack so they can cool the rest of the way. Now that my cupcakes are all cool, I can frost them. Big thing with your cupcakes is you want to make sure that they're not just cool on the top, you want to make sure they're cool on the bottom. I like to touch the bottom to the back of my hand to make sure that they are actually cool. If they're hot on the bottom, they're still hot in the center, and your frosting will melt off. If you are making cupcakes for a dinner that is happening very soon, you can always pop your cupcakes in your freezer on a tray like this and leave them for about 10 minutes and they'll be cool all the way. Same thing though for checking, you want to make sure they're cool on the top and cool on the bottom before you frost them. You want to get a pastry bag, cut the tip off the pastry bag. My favorite frosting tip is just a big round frosting tip. Put that in the bag. And you can fold the bag over so that it fits around your hand, making it easier to fill up by yourself. I'm going to do a couple scoops of frosting in here, and then we'll start frosting. I like to make sure all my frosting is down in the bag. Push it down where I see the frosting line is. I'll squeeze my bag and twist it right there. You're going to keep one hand on top of your bag, one hand on the bottom. Bottom hand is not squeezing, top hand is. Bottom hand is just moving it where it needs to be. When you start to frost your cupcakes, you want to start in the center, squeeze from the top, and you want to be above the cupcake when you do it. You don't want to be touching it. And just squeeze it until you have the amount of frosting you want. Stop squeezing. Lift up, and you have a frosted cupcake. We're going to continue doing that on all of them. Now that your cupcakes are all frosted, you might have some frosting left over. If you know you're going to be using it again for something soon, you can always put it in a container and put it in your fridge for about 2 or 3 days and it will still be good. Just make sure that when you pull that frosting out of your fridge that you let it sit for a little bit because it will be rock hard after being in your fridge since it is made with butter. Now, the last thing you have to do is try one of your cupcakes. Perfect orange Dreamsicle cupcake.